So I've learned that the more gentle voice inside us, the one that's like, maybe you could win a Grammy, you know, that voice, that's the one you want to listen to, not the one that's like, you'll never fucking win that, you little pansy bitch. Like, that voice isn't real.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And it's Recovery Month.
Yep.
All sorts of recovery.
You know some things about that.
I know a little bit about that. I've been in the field for a minute.
Yeah. How long now? 20 years?
Well, 2001, I got arrested. 2002, I quit meth. So that's 17 years since I stopped. But, you know, I was doing research for like 6 to 7 years before that.
Right.
So it's been like 20, 25, 26 years
Quote,
of being
research.
Involved in the field. You know, in anthropology, they have anthropological fields of research where you go live with the types of people that you study,
right,
with the tribes. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was just developing my expertise.
Yeah, well, you're so wise, you know.
Is that?
It's like a deep innate wisdom.
I was foolhardy.
Yeah.
You know that word, like, right? Foolhardy.
Yeah.
I was the opposite of wise and ran into it full in, but learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just ended our family. Man, I guess you got a little bit of recovery in that last interview I did with my sister, which was amazing. Still so excited that we got to have that conversation and you guys got to listen in. And again, obviously that had a little bit about recovery because we talked about my story, etc. But we're going to go all in. September, Recovery Month. We're going to have a lot of really amazing stuff in it. For those of you who don't know, I don't know what you're doing, not knowing this yet, but a lot of the work, as Sophie mentioned, that I do is around recovery. And so if you need help with that, please check out the rest of the things we do.
He has an online course for any of you that are just now starting to listen to this podcast, Ignited Recovery. So check that out. They have some really great things going on that are just beyond what anyone else is doing.
And we now introduced a lower cost entryway into it, which is really, really nice. Like $25 a month. Can't beat it.
Amazing.
Okay. Our review of the week, our friend of the week, Julia J.S. Radical Transparency, baby. That's her title. I love this podcast so freaking much. The vulnerability and authenticity that Adi and Sophie bring to the table is so refreshing. I'm a huge advocate of radical transparency, and listening to this podcast has really helped me to embrace conflict as opportunities to grow closer to my person. Not to mention, the episodes further fuel my desire to share my story, reveal my scars, and show up fully. Thank you guys for giving us permission to love our perfectly imperfect selves. You know, we're living our perfectly imperfect life right with you. So we're really happy to be able to share it. And I'm so happy that it lands. So
thank you so much, Julia, for that review.
Sophie, you got a quote for us?
Yeah. So this podcast is going live on September 4th. So I just opened up. This is, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I love to share from the Book of Awakening. And it's by Mark Nepo. And today's reading is Growing Inside the Song. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. I saw a woman singing while pregnant and imagined how the rhythms of song affected the life forming within her. I imagined the song drawing her unborn child's soul closer to its time in the world, the way light works on a root strengthening underground. I watched her sing and realized that the life within her was growing inside the song. I looked around the room, for we were in a circle of song, and everyone singing was bringing their soul closer to its time in the world. The nervous man was less nervous while singing, and the insecure woman next to me was relaxing her unworthiness as she sang. And I was able to drop my replaying of wounds while my mouth was open and my eyes were closed. It was then that I realized that regardless of the words or the melody, this effort to sing is a way to open the passageways between what is growing within and what is growing without. I now believe it is important that we sing while pregnant with our dreams and troubles and want of truth of love. Important that we attend our little seed of spirit with the same care we would offer an unborn life forming within us. Essential that we care for our unique body as a carrier of life magically forming within us as we make it through our days. And then what I love is that he always has some sort of a prompt of what to do in this exact moment. So he says, center yourself and meditate with your hands on your belly, imagining that you are pregnant with a form of yourself growing within you. Breathe deeply, and when comfortable, give voice to your breath, letting your breathing have whatever sound it will. Breathe slowly and fully, knowing the simple voiced breath is a song. Breathe, sing, while your hands hold your spirit forming within you. And so, again, it's from the Book of Awakening, and we'll put a link in the show notes, but it's just such a beautiful thing to pick up. I try and do it every single day. And then if I have the time and energy, I'll journal afterwards, or I'll do the meditation or the exercise. And it really helps just start my day on the right foot and bring me back to what's really important. And I thought that since he offers a meditation, it would be really good segue to this amazing podcast recording.
Yeah. I always love learning about new meditation concepts because, you know me, I get bored easily.
Yeah, just different techniques. And he actually offers something different every day. There's a different exercise. And it's a great way to just get out of your own way.
Very cool. You know, in recovery, meditation, mindfulness is one of those practices that is so powerful, cannot be overstated, and yet is just overlooked so much, right? People always want to go and fix. They always want action. They always want to like, okay, tell me the thing I got to do, that if I do it, everything will get fixed. Yeah. And a lot of times the initial answer is actually a little bit of the opposite. And that is, well, let's first look inside and see what's going on.
Let's look inside. Let's also create habits to learn how to take more space. What I always imagine, I remember I heard this in a yoga class from our friend Rose of Sharon, who was my first yoga teacher in LA. And I went to this class, and I remember we were standing in a pose where you put your hands underneath your feet.
Oh, yeah.
You look a little bit like a gorilla. And
that's what I know it as, gorilla pose.
Yeah. And she explained it as like, it was around the holidays at the time. And even if you're not an addict or you haven't gone through recovery, we can all relate to this on some level, I think. So it was basically about compulsiveness around the holidays. Like, so we had our hands underneath our feet, and and this was literally like over 15 years ago. And I still remember like the room we were in and the way that it sat in my body. And so my hands were under my feet, and she was saying like, it's the holidays and it's a time where we're very compulsive. We're spending just out of like, just excessive spending habits. Like we just do this around the holidays, and maybe we're grabbing a lot of holiday cookies, and we're at the office and someone else brought in another baked good, and we're eating even though we're not hungry or even though we don't want it. We're eating out of bad habit, or maybe we're picking up cigarettes because we're feeling stressed. And all of that was like, if you're standing in the kitchen and you feel the urge to grab that cookie, just do this pose. Put your hands under your feet, take a few deep breaths, and really create space between the action and the reaction. And that space between is where...
Or even the thought and the action.
Or the thought and the action, just more space. Yeah. How can you create more space? Because once you can take a few breaths or take a yoga pose and breathe into that, and just create that space is where the magic is, because that's where it goes from not leaning into the addictive behavior or that repetitive behavior, but instead take a second thought. Do I really want to grab that cookie or smoke that cigarette or grab that third drink just because it's a holiday party or whatever it is? Yeah. And it's, there's all these techniques and beautiful things, like you were saying, that like can help.
Totally. Well, that speaks also to like when we do the habit reset challenge, I always tell people, so many of us focus on how to stop doing things instead of focusing on how to do different things instead of them. And What I hear there is, when you see this thing and you have this immediate action that your body wants to take, do this other action first. So you're replacing it. You're calling it putting a space. You're redirecting your habits in a way. And a lot of us, I think a lot of people feel helpless to change their habits because they've been going on for so long. But your brain is always changing. That's what I say to people all the time is your brain is changing constantly. As you're listening to this podcast, your brain is working. And if you remember anything from this podcast, literally a sentence, something that Sophie read, the meditation she shared, anything, that means your brain has changed, right? Your brain will be changed after listening to this podcast. What I tell everybody that I work with is this. Do you want to take agency, to take some control over the direction in which your brain will change, or do you want to let it just change in whatever way it will? Every time you repeat a habit, it strengthens some connections.
It's funny. I feel like I'm kind of dying when I let that happen. Like when I'm complacent or when I just sit and let the world guide me in that way, and not in like an energetic way. But if I just go through habits and I feel myself going through the same thing, my first instinct is to want to change that.
Yeah, well, in so many different ways, right? Like Sophie looks dainty, but you're a bull.
Yeah.
And what that means is you have a lot of habits that seem totally normal to you until the moment you decide they need to change.
Yeah.
And the moment you decide to need to change, you're like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck everybody. I don't care what has to happen.
Yeah.
I was going that way, but now I'm going to go that way. I might break half your store doing it, but we'll do it. And here, like,
it's for the greater good.
Well, there's so many examples where it works out well for everybody. And then there are examples where it rattles people's cages and they don't know what to do about it. But we're sitting in our new house right now. And one of the perfect examples to me, I really want to do a story of this on Instagram the day of. Maybe we'll still do it now just because. But we were going, for anybody who's bought a house, you'll understand this part of the story. But it is stressful as fuck. You have your regular job, we're parents, we have all this other stuff going on. And then every day, there's an hour to 2 hours worth of other things, filling out paperwork, making phone calls, all this stuff. Plus,
and never mind, when people added this when I was sharing on Instagram, they're like, it's stressful enough to buy a house, never mind to move. It's both at once. We were moving from our old place. I'm selling old furniture. I'm meeting people in back alleys to sell my baby stuff. It's moving out of one place and packing up your life.
I'm even talking about
buying a home.
I'm even talking about before the deal closed.
Exactly.
Because we weren't sure when was going to happen.
Just the anxiety.
So there's stress and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then it closes and we're down to signing the paperwork and getting the keys and all that. And Sophie, pretty much every person from the beginning of this process till that moment told you, well, you close on Monday, you sign the documents, then money transfers, and then you have to wait another day. And Sophie's like, why do I have to wait this other day? And he was like, well, that's just the way it's done. You have to wait this other day. And we go, what does that mean? Why are we waiting another day? And then one person out of all the people who were involved in this said, well, you could drive the paperwork yourself to this office, this government office. And Sophie was like a dog with a bone because you started asking around. Nobody had been to this office.
Nope.
Nobody had ever done this work. And we're talking about 2 real estate agents, an escrow person, mortgage brokers, all this stuff. And then Sophie goes, okay, I'm going to drive there.
I said, is there a chance? Is there a small chance that when I go there, this will be successful? And everyone said, there is a very small chance. I don't advise you go. And I said, but you're saying there's a chance.
It's like Dumb and Dumber.
Literally.
So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah. And so you get in the car, 80% of what needs to be in place for this negative 5,000% chance.
Yeah, never mind. We're sharing a car right now, and I had to borrow from Maddie. It's just the amount of things.
You drive. And on the way, all the things close. So at least 100% of the things that need to be in place for this to even potentially be able to happen. You get to the place.
Running.
You get there in time.
By the way, I'm 7 minutes before the one office closes to get the paperwork.
You get there in time. You submit the thing. They tell you have to wait another line, but you're pretty solid. You got it. And then you send us a picture of yourself waiting in line and saying, I'm in line. I should be able to get everything done, which meant we could get the keys that day. Now, for everybody who's still staying in touch with the story, Sophie, essentially what she got us was, 12 to 20 hours of more time with the keys. Now, there were a lot of reasons why that was important for Sophie, and I had to do the moving and the people who were going to help us here the next day to move and all these things that she had already set up. What I'm saying is there's an element of the way things are done, and then there's a way to change the way things are done. It's not always easy, right? You have to drive 2 hours with uncertainty in the middle of a day that it wasn't like it was simple. We got 3 kids, but you said like that was important enough. And when something is important enough for you to change a habit, not always, but oftentimes there's a way to create a different way of doing things.
Absolutely.
And to me, that was an example where 5 people didn't believe it was doable. And yet, because you believed that it was doable, you persevered and you worked
Made
through
it happen.
And as a lesson for people, this is a month on recovery. I look at addiction. And by the way, Sophie, we don't say people are addicts or not. But people who struggle with addiction, with drugs or alcohol, it doesn't matter what the specific struggle is. We're told a lot of things about who we are. We're told about what we can do and what we can't do, right? Like I was told as a meth addict that I will never be able to use any substance again. I've been drinking fine for 12 years. Meth free for whatever that was, 17. I've been drinking for 12 years. So now people are coming up with different solutions as to why that is. You were never an addict in the first place. Maybe I'm in relapse mode right now and have been for 12 years. People will try to make sense of your reality all the time. Recovery for me is about finding your path. It's about finding the path that works for you. Sophie deciding to take that on, she could have not gotten the keys that day. It could have failed. But the point is, are you going to just do things the same way because that's the way they've always been done? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to say, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I want to try this other thing and give it everything you have, give it the effort that you have in you, best effort to move forward in a new way that great gets to define your new reality. And in that sense, Biet, who's the person that we have on the interview here today, is a really good example of that. Her recovery path is very different than mine, but she found her own unique peace. She found her own unique place in the world. Meditation and mindfulness, by the way, is a huge component of that. So I think that really goes well with your reading, Soph. But she combines music and meditation and these really powerful sort of activations and events for people. Nobody has written your specific story of recovery. Nobody has written it yet because nobody can write it. You're the one that gets to write it. So you get a choice. Are you going to write it the way that everybody else always says it has to be written because that's the way they did it and it's the only way they see it? Or are you going to pick a different path? I can tell you with certainty, I just got off a client session right before recording this, and I can tell you with certainty, I've seen now hundreds and hundreds of people. All of their recovery stories are different. Of course, there are themes, but an Ignited Hero in this program that Sophie mentioned earlier, we've had almost 200 people enroll. None of their recovery stories are exactly the same. Some deal with drugs, some deal with alcohol, some deal with both, some deal with sex, porn, food, and alcohol. The point is that just as unique an individual as your road has been to this moment, so can your recovery journey. And we're going to open the recovery month episode up with this, but there will be a lot more coming from me on my channels. I'll sneak into Sophie's channels as well. And I want you guys to take this month to take some action, to move forward in momentum. And obviously, we offer a lot of different ways for you to do that. So as Sophie mentioned, we have the Ignited Hero program. We now have the full program and this amazing subconscious habit reset version. It's like the intro version to that program. We'll have links for both of those for you. We also have the Ignited Glow event.
Yay!
Our first big live event. If you haven't seen the list of guests, it's insane.
It's in LA.
bit.ly/Ignited Glow, all caps. We'll have the link again on the bottom. Shaman Durek, Busy Go, like all these people you've heard here, Alexandra Roxo.
Yeah, our circle of amazing, inspiring teachers, guides, leaders in the wellness space from everything from spirituality to meditation, yoga, fitness, wellness, balance, sexuality, everything is within these 3 days. And we really encourage you to check out the link, get your tickets now. It's going to sell out. It's going to be epic.
And early birds only going for another, I think probably a week when this thing comes out. Yeah. So check it out. It's not recovery specific in the sense that we're not going to sit around and talk about addiction and drugs all that much. But here's the thing. Recovery is not about sitting around and talking about addiction and drugs all the time. It's about creating the life that you want. That's what recovery really means, is having a forward-looking, purposeful life that you're engaged in and makes you inspired. That's where it links up with what Ignited does so well. And so the Ignited Glow event, will be exactly a 3-day experience that will elevate and lift just the way you live, the way you feel in everyday life. And if you've enjoyed these interviews, imagine sitting in a room with these same people, with us, and having these conversations in person. We've also added a VIP option for people who want to link up even more, and that's going to be sick. There's going to be side workshops and dinners and lunches with the guests, really intimate settings. It's going to be fun. So let's open up this recovery month with a bang, right? Check out Biet, see her incredible transformation through the struggles that she's been through. And then think to yourself, right? Who do I know in my life? What elements of this apply to my own life? And what can my recovery look like? Even if I don't struggle with addiction, what am I holding on to? What am I struggling with that I can uplift? This interview is amazing. This month is going to be amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Please give us some feedback, screenshot your favorite moments, and just give us a little bit of love so we know. Either if you haven't given us a review on iTunes, please do so, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you for listening. We love you guys.
Love you all. See you on the flip side.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
All right, welcome everybody to the conversation piece of today's podcast episode. We've got Biet Simkin in the house. How you doing, Biet?
I'm amazing. Hi.
Hello, hello, hello. You gave us some news before this that you're moving to LA.
I am. Yeah, we're moving to LA in October, and
What made you
I kind of
have
feel. I'm a New Yorker, like born and raised, and New York City is, as you may know, like one of the most important and phenomenal places in the world.
Yeah.
It's where I did a lot of like roaming around the streets at 4 a.m. with a bottle of Jack Daniels in my hand, and copping like heroin on the corner of like whatever in Willie, you know what I mean? Like all that. And I'm so grateful for it. Like it was just the most incredible place to grow up, especially if you like being chased by like chainsaws through the projects when you're 12. Everybody
joy.
It's a joy. It is. I mean, I have so many good stories, and it's mostly like so many of them are just from having been growing up like a New York kid and like partying on the Lower East Side when I was so young. But yeah, there's something happened. I just had a baby. My career doesn't require me to live in any particular place, and I just figured, why not live in a place where it's 75 degrees and sunny all the time? Plus, a lot of my best friends already live there, so I figured like, why not hang out with people you love in the sun?
Totally. A lot of your people have made the move. It's 78 today. I hope that's okay.
I can live with that.
But it's definitely sunny. So you mentioned your work doesn't require you to be anywhere, and we work in the same sphere-ish. You want to tell everybody what you do?
Sure. I'm a spiritual teacher and an author. I also create these epic meditation experiences all over the globe, and I score them with my own music. So it's basically like if a Coldplay concert was also a mass meditation, and then also maybe like a Louis C.K. comedy show before he like whipped out his penis in front of people inappropriately.
Or at least when we didn't know that he was whipping out his
Right. Well, the good news is I'm not secretly whipping out my penis in the back either. After I'm done guiding thousands of people through a meditation experience and scoring it with my own music, I do not abduct my students.
That's awesome.
Yet.
To be honest, until you just said that right now, I never thought about including that as part of the experiences that I contribute to people. But now, I think
I do my best.
I'm glad we get to laugh about this stuff. But it's so meditation, spirituality. I know you mentioned before that a lot of that work does end up happening, or at least a lot of people refer to you within the addiction recovery space. And that's kind of why we're talking about it in this specific moment in time. It's Recovery Month. And, when it comes to discussing recovery, I'm all about opening people up to options, opening people up to what's possible, really moving away from that, what I see as an archaic, old, I'll call it ancient and outdated version of a singular type of recovery that exists, right? The idea that there's only one way to do things, and this is what it is, almost regardless of what you believe in. But obviously, we all know what the kind of the prevailing approach is here. But for you, meditation and mindfulness is a much bigger concept. It's just that what you said is it ends up interacting a lot with the addiction space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I'm sober, and I believe that sobriety is the backbone of why I get to be spiritual. Like I didn't have the privilege of being spiritual, and I was raised by an awakened shaman or awakened teacher. Sort of like, imagine if you were raised by Eckhart Tolle, or you had like Mr. Miyagi living in your living room from the time you were born. That's my upbringing, and I really can't stress how authentic that was. It's not like I had a guy raising me who was like, there's a lot of people out in the world who like read a lot of self-help books, and they seemingly like do some of the work, like maybe they meditate, or maybe they like buy crystals or whatever, but it's not landing. It's not like penetrating their being. My father was someone for whom it not only penetrated his being, like he cured himself of tuberculosis in the woods of Russia, escaped communism, and came to the States to create a new life for him and for the new world that he ended up helping. And, something about the way he was very innocent and childlike. And so anyway, I was raised by him. He, unlike me, was like a very heavy drinker, and it didn't feel like or look like alcoholism for him, And so I just thought when I started drinking, because I'm a pretty professional drinker. I don't know for anyone who's listening, or if maybe for you, like I never blacked out. I was like the one at 7 a.m, like cleaning the apartment. Like it wasn't you know what I mean? Like I just had my shit together when it came to drinking. Okay. It was just the rest of my life that fell apart as a result of my drinking. You know what I mean? Like my drinking was fine. What?
What was falling apart?
Oh, I mean, well, I was poor. I grew up poor, but I like continued to be in poverty, continued to be a victim of not knowing how to make money, feeling like I had a lot of entitlement issues growing up, as intelligent and spiritually versed and like cultured as I did, but poor as fuck. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on here, can I?
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
Amazing. So poor as fuck, really poor, in like the streets of Queens, and I just kept it there. I didn't know how to push past. I got signed to Sony. I destroyed my career in the music industry. Then I came back to New York. I became a DJ. Because of drinking. Yeah. Drinking and like falling in love all the time. Like I was endlessly obsessed with like every 6 months falling in love with some new guy. And then like, of course, it was just like an epic trail of disasters. And then, and then I got into drugs, and then I'm trying to think of like all the way. Then, I had a baby. I got sober for my baby's birth, but then she died of sudden infant death syndrome when she was 4 months old. And I immediately was like, heroin time. And so went back to heroin and cocaine the night of her, funeral. And then my house burnt down, and I like lived in the part of the house that hadn't burned down, snorting heroin. And then my best friend hung himself. And then finally my father died. And my father was, for anyone who's listening, he was my higher power. Like he was, I didn't have my own spiritual source. Like some people call it God. I didn't have that. I just had my dad. And it was sort of like this illusion. Because if you have an enlightened person living around you and they just enable you to be a total lunatic, you know what I mean? If they don't say, look, wake up, you're asleep. If they're just like, no, you'll find your way, you'll find your way, you'll find your way. You know what I mean?
I do. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because you identified some of these things, and I want to dig in a little deeper, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So you lived with your dad, and he was spiritual, and then allowed you to connect. When you were drinking, what was the reason? And don't tell me because I really like being drunk. What was what were the things that drinking helped cover up for you and did a really good job of it, and then heroin or whatnot?
You know, when I was young, my mom died when I was 6, and then the rest of my family died one by one. And so we spent our entire life going to funerals. Like, it was just like everybody. And the only people who were left were me, my brother, and my father. That's it. All the grandparents, everyone died. And mostly the mom part was the most destructive. And leaving, like a lot of people lose a parent and then like get a parent. I lost a parent and got an awakened shaman, you know? So I had no boundaries. I went to public school. I didn't even have to go to school. I fucking faked my way through school the whole time. And when I found drinking, I think it helped me to cover up how sad I was my whole life about the fact that in my mind, I had been abandoned by my mom. You know, I didn't have the wherewithal to know that she didn't choose to leave me, and that perhaps it was really a huge tragedy for her to have to leave me. You know, it never occurred to me that way.
Sure. I mean, but why would it when you're that young, right? I mean, you would have to be a really awakened child to even be able to have a thought like that.
Well, I had some awakened thoughts. Like I knew immediately. Like, I remember I was 7 standing there crying, and my dad comes in and he's like, whatever, we were having a talk. And I said, my mom died. It's a gift. Like, she left us. It's a gift. I know it's a gift. That I knew. But I think for some reason it didn't land that I was allowed to also, because I had this whole awakened spiritual thing. I had that shit down from the time I was born. It was like that was my genius, was I just got stuff that most people never get. You know what I mean? But what I couldn't get with was how dirty and fucked up I was. I couldn't get with the fact that I was going to die one day. I couldn't get with pain. I couldn't get with the fact that she had died. I couldn't get with how fragile it all was. And I couldn't get with all of that, all of life stuff, like shitting and pooping and dying and sweating and looking bad. That I couldn't handle. I could tell you, oh, it's all a gift that she died, and fucking mean it. But I couldn't get with reality. In
that sense, don't you feel like the awakened state, the spiritual conversation, it sounds like even when you were 7 or 8 or 9 years old, is in some way a really, really good tourniquet for the pain that you really are suffering through? And you can pay lip service to it and sound authentic, but there's like this boiling cauldron of pain and lava inside of you that is just aching to, like a volcano, just erupt, which it sounds like what you did in your teenage years. You were like, fuck you guys, I'll show you awakened, I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, it was a blend of that. I think true awakening is that contradiction, and it's exactly what you're describing. It's an allowance of letting yourself feel all that pain. So to answer your question, I used alcohol to cover up my pain because I was ashamed that I had any. Yeah. And I had this idea that to be spiritual, you had to be perfect and float around like the fucking Dalai Lama or whatever. Not to say that Dalai Lama. Yeah, I don't think he floats either. But I just was like, I want to be, and it was all in defense. Like, just, I wanted like roses petals to be thrown down when I stepped down. I wanted everyone to just celebrate me. And if I wasn't on the front page of the newspaper, like, I was a failure.
And your dad served, it sounds like, as a good role model of what you're supposed to look like.
He did. And he was like super serene 99.9% of the time. He just walked around like a freaking like la 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 la. Like, he really was like that.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for being willing to dig into that. Because for me, here's the thing, right? What I hear a lot is, well, I just drink differently than other people, like you just talked about. And there's some misconceptions. Like, people think that it's the individuals who get drunk really easily who become I'm putting alcoholics in quotation marks. I hate that word, but that's actually not at all true. It's the people who can drink more and have less impact, less intoxication. They're the ones who develop an alcohol problem typically. And the reason is drink more, be more functional, and last longer. The people who have, like my wife, Sophie, and she'll record the intro with this for me, but she's on the East Coast right now, so she's not here. I wish she was, but that girl has 2 stiff drinks and she's done.
Wow.
She can't be an alcoholic. I'm not saying she can't be, and again, alcoholic, air quotes, but like she's not functional with alcohol. So she actually drinks very little. And when I say very little, it's like once or twice a week, but like she can't drink every day, because if she drinks every day, she's going to be in a really terrible state. For people who can more, that doesn't happen. And then you develop the tolerance and you develop the dependence on it, psychological and physical. And then you look at yourself 10, 15 years after the thing started, you're like, oh shit, I can't not do this now because I've developed a life where the alcohol just supports everything I do.
100%. Yeah. Alcohol / everything that supports alcohol.
yeah, exactly. And then like blow is a good example.
Blow. Yeah.
And then I just have to, you were able to stop when it was important enough because you were pregnant, and then to fucking lose that. Oof. I mean, I have 3 kids now. Do you have any children now?
I just had a baby and she's 9 months old, and it's been one of the most excruciating experiences to see her. And hello?
Yeah.
It's been one of the most excruciating things to see her and to think, how did I ever go through that? I don't know. I don't know how I survived. I don't know how you survived. Tell the story.
I know.
Yeah. Heroin. Heroin.
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
My kids died tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fucking good. I've been meth-free for 18 years. I drank, but like, I can't tell you that a gun is not going in my mouth. I'm not jumping out of a building, or I've never tried heroin, but I'd be down to try it if my kids died. and the reason I say it, I mean, and now you know it because you've had the 9-month-old.
Oh, yeah.
I feel just nothing but empathy for that version of you that lost a child and was like, oh my God, I have to survive. What the fuck do I do? Oh, hold on. I have a solution. Because I mean, I don't know what I would do. Nothing is safe from that.
No,
that's too much pain.
And she was only 4 months old. So it's like this innocence.
4 months?
Yeah, it's sudden infant death syndrome.
I thought it was even earlier than that. That's terrifying, Biet.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Like now as a mom, I'm like, I don't know, but I do believe, like, if you read my book and, you get with me, and even if you work with me, like everything that I teach and everything that I am is permeated by this, what I think I'm best at. Like if I was like, what's my superpower? It's really having been gifted these unthinkable losses, right? Because it is unthinkable to have lost a mother and a daughter before the age of 26, Yeah. And I just think when I think of those, I actually believe that those were gifts. I don't say that like, haha, Hallmark greeting card. Like I truly know. And I help others to see how their tragedies are also like a gift, and actually some kind of strange alchemy is there when we're being asked to see who we're truly meant to be on this planet. And then we're given little sources of opening into that,
Yeah, I mean, look, humans have one primary superpower, I think, more than anything else, and that is our ability to understand our own thinking and to adapt. Like this idea of metacognition, seeing our own thinking and being able to reflect on it, is an incredible power that can make sense of anything. Because I mean, I know one thing for sure: if you didn't have those losses, you wouldn't be able to help people the way you help them now.
Right.
And I always think about this because it's like, I mean, I've gone through the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, but I don't actually know what my life would have looked like if those weren't there, right? If I didn't become a drug addict, and if I didn't barely graduate from school, and if I didn't disappoint my parents over and over, and like I don't know what my life would have turned out like. I might have liked it equally as well, but I know for sure I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Like I wouldn't be married to Sophie, and I wouldn't have these 3 kids, and I wouldn't be in this house. And there's a power in accepting that. Like in my program that I help people with, that's our second principle, is radical acceptance, right? You have to be able to accept everything that has happened up until this moment. And from what I'm hearing from you, is almost even, not almost, but celebrate it.
Yeah, celebrate it in a way of asking the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, like, why would I be given this specific torture? Because everyone's being given torture. And there's this whole, like in Dante's Inferno, that it is said that if we were to throw all of our suffering into a giant pile, everyone would go back to the pile and grab their own. Nobody would be like, I'll take this other person's.
Right.
Like, it's just because it's for us. It's designer friction, as one of my teachers called it long ago. Designer friction. It's designed just for us. And that's great. Like, thinking about it from the large mega standpoint of my daughter, my mother, my house burning down, all these intense tragedies. But today I still get to use those principles, which is that I'm constantly faced with rejection, shame, no's. I'm getting faced with fear, doubt, insecurity. All those things are still real, because as long as you're not dead, that's going to happen. And when that's coming towards me, the gift that I have today, that I get to embrace and walk straight into with arms open, all of those experiences, and say, ooh, like, what do you have to show me? Like, ooh, what are you here for? And how did I call this in? Rather than being like, I'll be damned, self-pity, spiral, all about how, if only, woe is me, if only I could not be so doubtful, then I'd be Beyonce or whatever,
Hey, there's only one Beyonce.
Thank God.
I know, totally. Yeah, it's really interesting, right? There's so much in the world that we can complain about, so much in the world that we can feel badly about, so much that we can regret.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's age at this point. I'm 42 years old, and there was a time when I was in my definitely late teens, but even 20s, and a lot of the information that I took in, a lot of the music, a lot of the readings that I would do would be about these existential crises. Like 9 Inch Nails was a favorite band, and I would read all this stuff that really questioned the point, and maybe even more than questioning the point, relegated and put down the standards by which I was living, right? By which everybody around me was living. And the interesting thing about that I realized in the last 10 years of my life or so is that when you do that, you can talk about it as a spiritual concept. You can just talk about it as, whether it's the law of attraction or whatever, however you want to frame it. What you do is you surround yourself with the misery that you attend to. And I'm not even saying that it's false. I don't even know, like, the existential crises, the philosophical things that I would think about, what's the point of it all? And in the end, we all die, and it's all just chemicals coming in and out of my neurons, right? There is no joy, there is no love, all that stuff. It's also true. But what I realize is I get to control the levers, right? Like, I can know that that's true. And that I just had this conversation with a client the other day because he was going through this crisis. And I was saying, if I know that putting music that makes me really happy on, music that gives me energy and makes me excited, gives me a happier day, makes my day better. Why wouldn't I push that button? Why would I listen to music that depresses me and makes me feel terrible about myself when I know that that's going to make my day worse? And there's some accountability in there. There's some realism, objectivism, right? The idea of, let me do the things that give me value and give me joy. And I think when you do that, when you stop blaming others, when you stop looking outside yourself and start taking control of some of these things in your life,
Yeah.
the experience is better. Like literally just the day-to-day experience that you have is just so much better.
Yeah, if you can dig it, see, but it would take a radical coming forth in honesty to admit that you're ambitious or that you're interested in joy or that because the truth is that that's very risky. What you're describing is a life with risk included, right? If I set myself up, like I'm downloaded, the way that I'm created as a human is to just have a terrible day. I'm infused with a downward escalator that's going to tell me everything's wrong. No one likes me. I hate people. People are horrible. We're all going to die. What even is this place? How did I get here? Whatever, right? It's all meaningless. And that's the way that I'm hardwired, not me, but all people. And I don't care if you're the most fucking chipper, bitch on the block. Like, I know you have this issue, right? And if you're hardwired to feel those things, then it's a radical stance to suggest to yourself that you want something different, because the moment you admit you want something different, you're already leaning towards the opportunity of failure. And most people just aren't willing to take that risk.
I hear you. Can I say something though? I definitely used to live in the place where that was my predominant, like I used to say about myself, well, I used to struggle with clinical depression, and I still say about myself that I lean towards depression.
Yeah.
But it used to occupy 80 to 90% of my daily thinking. And it's now 10 to 15%. Like it's flipped. And so I'm not going to say that self-doubt doesn't happen. It happens near daily, not daily, but near daily. But like the amount of time and the amount of effort that my brain focuses on it now, and that's because of the lifestyle. It's because of the rituals and the tools.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And the things that I've done to kind of nudge my brain away from that. And some of those things are really simple. I'm sure you do this with people, right? Like gratitude lists and visualization, some of that kind of stuff has to some extent taken what I used to because it's all hardwiring, right? Your brain is wired. So it was wired that way. And I feel like it's gotten somewhat rewired. Now, far from perfect, but like in the morning, this morning, for instance, was one example. Sophie and the kids are on the East Coast. When everybody's home, I wake up at 6 a.m. because they wake up somewhere between 6:30 and 7. And if I don't wake up at 6, I don't get to journal. I don't get to go for a run or do a workout. I don't get to do a lot of that stuff. So I have to wake up at 6. Well, they're not here. And yesterday I hung out with a friend. And so I set my alarm clock for 6:30, but my body automatically woke up at 6:12. Not at 6, but at 6:12 because it's around the time and it knows what to do. And I woke up and the thought happened in my head, just get back in bed, man. There's nobody here. You can cheat today. But then in a split second, my brain said, nope, get down, do the things you do every morning. And so there was that moment.
Right.
And then the practice kind of came in, and it's beautiful to watch and it's fun to be part of. But I agree. There's always that potential to jump back into the old way of not just woe is me, but it's all pointless.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I have the same experience as you, and that of course I have rituals. I do not skip them today, and even if it occurred to me to think to skip them, which it rarely does, I would never skip them. But not because I'm a robot and I do what's right. I just do it because it's blissful and it works. I do what works. It's verified that it completely changed my life, and if you know my story, from poor to rich, from, insecure to confident, from single chronically to married for a very long time to the man of my dreams, to, on and on and on. Right. So obviously the transformation is clear. I will say that I think for me, it's an ebb and flow in that I believe that I'm a creature of constant expansion and constant growth. And so I've been gifted, this is specific to my journey on this planet, but I've been gifted this ability to kind of go inward and then go outward and then go inward and then go outward. And so sometimes I get these periods where I'm just in radiant confidence. And then when I cry, it's tears of joy endlessly, right? But then sometimes I am brought down to my knees, and I actually feel like humility humility is part of my round out. You know, like if I didn't still have things that made me fall to my knees and then source me back to humility, I wouldn't reach up to that unknowable source above and within myself and say, I don't fucking know how to do this without you. So please help me. And when I ask for that, I'm gifted. And then I go right back to enlightenment or awakening or whatever. But to me, enlightenment is a process. It's not like a station. It's like, now I'm enlightened. So that means like, now I just perfect. It's like this incredible, really dynamic, organic experience that has so many, it's almost like, you know, Mozart's Requiem or something. Like it just has all these different notes and different stanzas or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad if somebody believes while they're on the enlightenment journey, I'd even say that there's a destination. I think they missed the point on the front end. You know, it's almost like I'll use a completely different kind of analogy. It's like the people who really love money and chase money and for whom money and success, and by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying, like, when money is your goal, it's like the people who believe, well, when I have $1 million, everything will be good, or when I have $500 million. But what ends up happening is the pursuit and the ongoing getting, whether you're getting enlightenment or you're getting intimacy or you're getting money, that's what we're really in for, is the journey. There is no, I mean, there's one destination for all of us. We all know where it's going. And you can, different ones of us believe what happens after that point, but like we all know we're heading to the end, and then there might be a retelling of the story, or you might be going somewhere else, or you might come back as something else, but it's still a different version of you, right? Like you don't come back and go, hey, I'm Biet, and now I'm a cat, or I'm a shaman. It's a rebirthing of your whole experience. So there's an end. Like we're going to an end, and I'm not in a hurry. Like I don't want to. I'm not trying to reach that end point faster.
Same, but I'm also open to the fact that it's. I also don't really believe in time, so I just, for me, it's like I get that it's coming, but I believe it's already here, and it never happened. Like it's all happening right now. There is only this one moment. Like Marcus Aurelius said,
Vonnegut timequake state.
Yeah, like Marcus Aurelius, who I'm sure you're very familiar with, said that a man who dies at 80 and a boy who dies at 8 only have ever lost the same exact thing, which is the present moment. And because you can only ever lose one thing, because there's only one thing happening, so you can't lose anything but that. And so I love that, because it also helped me with the loss of my daughter, because I thought to myself, well, her death wasn't any different from, like, you know, old Betty who died at like 97 in some old folks home somewhere. Like they both lost the same thing, which is just this ephemeral thing, this, you know, what we're both experiencing right in this moment. And that really, maybe for someone listening to that, that's discomforting. For me, that's so comforting to know that I have nothing to be afraid of, and I don't have to regret anything, because it's all happening right now. So if I just come to peace and forgiveness and acceptance about it, then I'm golden.
Yeah, and I mean, that takes us back to that piece you talked about, where it could be risky to want to be happy. And I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, in this moment, I would rather be excited and happy and joyful than upset. And so it's about the moment. Like what happens the next moment, I can't plan. I don't know. So I'd rather just have the best experience I can in this moment. And when I was younger, around drug use, let's say, the idea of what would create the best moment for me was very hedonistic, was, you know, around my id, right? Like the basest sort of emotions, right? And so getting fucked up was escaping pain, and also about like diving in as deeply to momentary joy. What I realized is as I was creating joy, I was creating pain at the same time. For the people around me, and for institutions, and for a lot of different things. And so the idea of what creates joy in my world has also changed and evolved over time.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more generous now.
More generous, less, I think less egocentric,
Yeah.
more inclusive.
Mm.
The notion that creating the best experience means only focusing on what would make me feel the best right now that idea has flown the coop. It's left because, first of all, there are a lot of other people I care about. And
3 kids, yeah, and a wife.
3
To
kids,
start with.
and an employee, there's all the things that come up. There are a lot of people who I want to make happy in my world because that makes me happier, right? It's a rising tide lifts all boats. It's like if I make the surrounding, if I make the environment, that's why we call this ignited. It's if I make the world that I live in, I think it's my quote. I don't know. I've used it for about 10, 15 years. I haven't seen any other source for it, but make the world a better place. You get to live in it. And so even my purpose-based work, the work where I'm helping other people, is still helping me because it creates less pain and suffering in the world that I live in, which makes my world better.
So true.
So we heard the pain.
Yeah.
And now you're the David Bowie of meditation. How did you find this out of you?
How do you mean? How did I find who I am?
Who you are and what you do to support that and all of that. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's such a fun journey. And by fun, I mean like excruciating and miserable. But I just, I was like, again, I was just really, really broke, really confused, really brilliant, really, really brilliant, really loving, and someone who has always been very open to receiving and giving love. That's never been a source of poverty for me. And, through none of those deaths did I lose the faith that love was right, that love was the only thing that mattered. Even when my father died, I remember this incredible moment where he had passed away and I could not stand that pain. And I was washing a dish in my sink and I threw down the dish and I was like, I will never feel this much pain again. That's where I was in so much fear.
Got it.
And a voice came down in that moment and it was like, I don't know why, but it sounded like a Black woman. And it was just like, yes, you will, girl. Yes, you will. And it wasn't like, oh, yes, you will in like a bad way. Like, no, it wasn't a threat. It was more like a girl, you got this all backwards. You are so fucking lucky. You had the best father. You loved each other. He was your best friend. He taught you about love and he taught you about light and he taught you about the infinity of truth beyond truth. And he gifted you all of this unsurmountable wealth, and he gifted it all to you. And he died and now you get to grieve and your heart is completely annihilated. And that's like the greatest wealth too. And at that moment I was single at the time and I could see I'm going to have a husband. I'm going to lose him one day to death. Either I die, he dies. I don't know. But I could see the whole beautiful picture in that moment. And I was like, I get it. I accept the challenge, and anyway, this went on. If you don't make
the investment, you don't reap the rewards.
Exactly. It's like this risk of like being, but anyway, so I was drunk, blah, blah. I got sober. This was about 11 years ago. I've been sober 11 years and I'm bone sober. Like I just don't fuck with anything anymore. And after about 2 years of sobriety, I was like, this is really boring. And this is not what I signed up for. I want a life that's like sexy and delicious and filled with that level of vulnerability that one gets when it's like 4 a.m. and you're gazing into a stranger's eyes and snorting cocaine and you're like, oh, I get you. And they're like, oh, I get you. That dumb bullshit that happens on drugs and alcohol. But I wanted that. So I was like, how am I going to get that if I don't drink again or do drugs again? So I like marched back towards my apartment and was like about to do mushrooms. Cause of course as any good addict, I saved magic mushrooms in my freezer just in case,
Oh,
and
man,
I walked
a vial of acid I'm really upset about still to this day.
I don't know if it would still be good in this time, but I went back to do these mushrooms, right? So I go back to the house and I'm about to do the mushroom and a voice kind of descended upon me. I have a voice in my life. I don't know if anyone else
listening. Is it still the same Black woman?
No, that was a specific woman that visited me then. I usually not a black woman. Sometimes it's like a fat Italian guy. That's when I'm being told to eat some pasta. But usually it's just like a benevolent voice of love, right?
Got it.
And so this voice comes down and it's like, maybe you shouldn't do that. And I was like, what the fuck do you want me to do then? You know, because that's how I talk to benevolent voices that speak to me from above. And
how else would you?
yeah, like, what else would you say? But what the fuck do you want from me? And the voice was like, I don't know, maybe you should return to your father's work and make it your own. And I was like, fuck. you know, you hear the truth and you're like, I can't argue with that, you know? So I did just that. And I returned to my father's work. My father was a master in a thing called fourth way work, which is what my book is focused around. But fourth way work is like this weird esoteric wisdom that no one gets. And even if I told you the books, you went and read them, you wouldn't get it. It's super fucking confusing. And so I went and returned to it and made it my life's work. I studied it day and night. I met with individuals to do the practices, right? And after several years of doing this, I just got a new level of freedom that was so high that I could not but to share it with the world, you know?
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I was still broke, still a musician, like a struggling musician. I didn't know what I was doing. And like piece by piece, things started to unravel where again, I heard a voice say like, you are actually a spiritual teacher. That's your destiny. And so I became that, which is for me, like I didn't know anything about business. I just, whatever, you know? And so I like, you know, became that. And I manifested someone who taught me how to like communicate with the world about being what I am and selling that, because I had a lot of issues around money and had a lot of issues around selling. And I thought that it was like evil and a contradiction to merge the worlds of the spiritual with with commerce. All bullshit, but I believed it to be true. And I had to unlearn all that stuff and really get to the essence of who I am, you know? And so I started doing meditation experiences in art galleries is how it began. But my vision was to end up in museums. And since then, of course, I've done the Museum of Modern Art several times with, you know, 600 to 800 people meditating all at the same time. And part of that also happened from me listening. And, you know, I just listen a lot to this benevolent voice that speaks to me from within. It nudges me in the right direction. And I know to trust it today. I obey it like a motherfucker. And it said to me, now you need to go raise money so that you can score your meditations with your own music. And I started to weep when I heard that message because I thought that I had to give up music to be
You thought music was done.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe you're bringing music back in this picture. And the voice was like, yeah, babe, you get to do it all. And I was like, oh God, you know, like.
This is a real asshole, man.
What?
That benevolent voice is being a real asshole. Like it's just making you do all the stuff you really want to do.
I know but it's not just what I want to do. It's the things I'm most afraid of, right? Because there's another voice for all of you who are listening. Like, you know, if you have a voice that tells you what to do, you have just as loud a voice telling you you'll never be able to do it. And who the fuck do you think you are? And, you know, you're not an old 60-year-old guy with a beard. So why would the word spiritual teacher apply to you? You know, that just doesn't work, you know? Or like, I make music, right? And then I have a voice that tells me still to this day, well, nobody cares. No one gives a fuck that you're as talented as Coldplay or like Bjork. Like, no one gives a shit. I have a voice that says that to me every day. And I like wake up and I'm like, I'm going to win a Grammy. And it's like, fuck you, you know? So I've learned that the more gentle voice inside us, the one that's like, maybe you could win a Grammy, you know, that voice is actually, that's the one you want to listen to, not the one that's like, you'll never fucking win that, you little pansy bitch. Like, that voice isn't real. So like, it's the sooner you get that voice is a broken voice and start to like make love to both of them, you know, not to hate on the fact that you have resistance, because resistance is a gift, but it's just to like get with the fact that these two are coming with you, know which one is your master, choose wisely, and then make the other one the fuel, which lets that master fly. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I love it. And it's also so connected to that thing I was saying before about, you know, if I know what button to push to make myself happy, I get to listen to the voice that tells me I'm a piece of shit. I really want to. I mean, I have the choice. But like, I know that's going to lead to a really crappy, miserable day. And I just don't really want to have a really crappy, miserable day today.
Exactly.
And so, and it's like I said before, it's still there. That was the voice that told me today to sleep in and be like, nobody's here. Nobody's even going to know that I slept in, right? Like my wife.
Vanity. Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't start the day the way I know makes me feel the best. So I just realized like, fuck it, let's just push that button and go and do a run. And then the day's been great.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So you've got the book.
I have a book. Yeah.
Don't just sit there, right?
Don't just sit there with an exclamation point.
I love it. It's like, I'm assuming about, mindfulness, meditation, and spirituality.
Yeah. All that. It's about awakening. It's about how to stop living a lie, basically, and how to wake up to the highest level of yourself.
Yeah. I was just loving it because, don't just sit there is the...
I know it's about meditation. Well, that's the whole point. It's like, don't just sit there.
The irony of people who are like, I can't just sit there. Well, here's the book for you.
Yeah, here's the book for you. Written by a Jew.
I love it. I love it. And then obviously you lead these meditation experiences and you speak. You're moving to LA. So am I to believe that you're going to start doing more of these here?
For sure. Yeah, I do some a year in LA, but I gather that if I'm going to be living there, there'll be more activations in LA than even before. So yeah.
I love it. I'll have to, we'll have to attend and do a little ignited thing for it. And if there is one around the time that this comes out, then...
well, I will be in New York, but then I'm also flying to San Francisco to do a mass meditation there on September 10th. So I don't know when this is coming out, but that's happening then.
Awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing this beautiful, beautiful story and as you said, right, the gift of all the struggles and the pain with our listeners. I think that's such an important message for this month in particular. It's important all the time, but people forget oftentimes, in my opinion, that the reason individuals struggle with addiction and the issues related to it, oftentimes, not always, but the vast majority of times, in my opinion, is also because they've struggled with a lot of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And so I really want to honor the journey that you've had and you coming and sharing that with us. And we normally end the podcast with 5 questions that we ask everybody. Do you mind if I fire away?
Let's fire.
Let's do it. So the first one is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Biet, you are not just spiritual and good and peace signs and rainbows. You are also dirty and stinky and mean and a bitch and dying one day. And the two things together are actually what make you so, so beautiful.
Was that one of your voices or your dad?
That was a real person. Her name is Sherry.
Sherry? Oh.
Yeah. Thanks, Sherry.
That's awesome by Sherry. Thank you for sharing that. No doubt that's true for all of us. What has been your most proud, exciting moment to date?
Oh my God. Maybe like yesterday when I was written up in page 6, but it's so hard to choose because so much good shit happens to me on a daily basis. Like I literally wake up and every day is it's like a candy store of like whatever. When I was 6, I lived on a Russian bungalow colony in the summers, and like this truck would come and it had ring pops and all the kids would like run and buy candies. I would get the ring pop and you would like put it on your finger and suck on it. That level of happiness is like how happy I am every day when I open up my phone. Like I open up my phone, it's like, oh, you've been written up in the Post. You know what I mean? Like it's so fucking cool. But yeah, I think I'll just say that because that happened yesterday.
Amazing.
Page 6.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
On the flip side of that, I think you might have already talked about it, but what has been your most difficult moment to date?
I don't know. Probably the Ula dying, but it's just all so fucked up, the whole bag, that I don't even, her death was just like one little star in the constellation of the whole thing. I don't even, but also like the worst moment, like, I don't even know. But to me, you know what I will say? Can I just, sorry, I'm just like on a little tangent. My daughter's death was not the worst moment of my life. The worst moments of my life are like a constellation of dumbass moments. To me, I would never give up my daughter's death. I would never give up my mother's death. I would never give up any tragedy that I've beheld, or even being broken up with and rejected and failing and failing and failing, all that shit. I fucking love it. And I'm so grateful for all of it. What I say is the most unpleasant feeling for me is like self-pity, you know, and like getting down the wormhole of self-centered thinking and overthinking. That to me is like the most painful thing on the planet is taking your mind and being like, oh, let's go for a ride. Like, I'm going to do that. Let's do that. You take me for a little ride.
Amazing. I love it. I love the place you've gone to with not just acceptance, but gratitude for some of these other things that you've had happen.
Oh, thanks.
And okay, so you do a lot of work. You help a lot of people. From what I've seen in the world, that normally means you have to learn how to take care of yourself really well. What have you done to take care of yourself? How do you do that? What's your self?
I do so much. I mean, it's like a laundry list, and I have no shame for it. You know, everything, waking up, gratitude list, meditation, sitting meditation, divided meditation, which is the one I teach in my book, which allows you to meditate all through the day. I go work out every day. Sometimes I skip a day, but not because I'm lazy, but because I truly feel like my body needs a minute. I have only friends around me that inspire the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
I'm married to the man of my dreams. He inspires me daily and like rises to the best and asks the best of me. Mantra. Affirmations. I can't live without affirmations. I live from a future place. Massages, spas, world travel, and also like accepting that for me, I'm a bit of a diva. So like, I like 5-star hotels and shit like that. And so not denying myself the path that is in essence true to me.
Beautiful. I love it. And last but not least, this podcast is called Ignited. I want to know what gets you ignited.
I'm truly ignited by entering the present moment. So when I do breath work, or when for some reason synergies align so that I'm completely out of my mind 100% and in this ethereal space that is like, I don't know what it is. I guess it could be heart or it could be soul, but it's certainly not my mind. And going into that place where there is nothing but the present moment and everything exists. It's like I feel connected to every person. I feel connected to every time that ever existed, like from dinosaurs to the future, right? And that sweetness, that effervescent, bubbly sensation. And I would say what gets me ignited is that today, sober as fuck, without one sip of alcohol, without one toke of weed, without one snort of cocaine, I feel like that quite a bit of the time. And I can get others to feel it too. That is what gets me ignited.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love the work. I'm going to make sure that we share links to all the amazing things you're doing so that people can connect to it. And I can't wait to see you here in LA.
I can't wait to see you too. Thank you so much for sharing yourself with me and your heart. It's been so lovely.
Thank you so much, Biet. Everybody, check out Biet. Screenshot this, tag us, tag her, and let us know the things that that really connected with you the most, and go follow her. Until then, we will see you next week. Love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.